Oh, I didn't see you there. Simon Miller from WhatCulture Wrestling. I'm just throwing things at a wall and hoping that they stick, because let's face it, if WWE can do it, why can't I? Oh, look, right, I got one. One stuck, fantastic, and it says, well, it says, just do everything. Why the hell not? Just go to your crazy brain and whatever pops out, you go, oh, we'll put it on television because somebody gave us a TV deal. And yes, that kind of sums up this week's episode of Raw, which was one of the strangest things I have ever seen in my entire life. We're going to go through it, we're going to take the finger of power, who's absolutely terrified, and we're going to give the good bits an up and the bad bits a down. And as a quick aside, remember, go over to WhatCulture Wrestling's YouTube community feed right now. The poll for retro ups and downs is up there right now. We're going to be doing Survivor Series 2001, ECW One Night Stand 2005, Bad Blood 1997, Arcane debut, can you believe it? WCW Bash at the Beach 1996, oh my gosh, Hulk Hogan's gone heel. And we're also going to throw in Insurrection 2002, so that's 5 options you have to choose from, because somebody very nicely gave us a super chat and we don't want to ignore that. That would make us assholes. So yes, please go over there right now, vote. We'll do it on Friday, 2 p.m. BST. But as for now, right, it's going to take me a while. The amount of segments is ups and downs for Raw. Now, in case you just want the quick idea of what happened last night on Raw, you want the too long didn't read, Vince McMahon basically had a hat like this, and he was drawing bits of paper out that had things written on them. So it went like, oh, Shane McMahon, my fake son, or Underground Fight Club, yeah, sure, we'll do that. And it went, oh, Shayna Baszler, fantastic, she can be on the show. Sasha Banks, great. And how does it finish? It finishes when 2 people not in the match somehow get it thrown out. Honestly, from start to finish, it was like somebody was trying to hit you in the head and you would move it out of the way, but every now and then it would smack you and you'd be a little bit doozy, but this was real. Anyway, it all began with the commentators going, oh, welcome to Raw, because there was something wrong with their voices in my version, and then the lights started flickering, and this was the beginning of many teasers. Apparently there was someone backstage just fiddling around with the light switch, like some kind of butthole. It kept happening as Apollo Crews made his way to the ring because he was going to have a match with MVP. And luckily we had some goodness here to start things off, because MVP Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley are officially the Hurt Business, and they look absolutely brilliant. Even beforehand, MVP got on the mic and he said this, and he said he was going to rock Apollo Crews because they were finally going to have their United States Championship match, and is getting it up. MVP also said to Crews that he was going to whip him so badly that he'd find himself back in catering with Ricochet and Cedric Alexander. And given that we didn't see these two guys on the entire episode, I'm going to guess he's correct. So as a quick side note, please put Cedric Alexander in this group, otherwise he's just going to vanish again and his face won't even be put on a milk carton. And given that the story had been that Crews was out of action because he had a dodgy neck, MVP went after his neck. So this was really slow and it was really methodical, but it was a very good, well-worked professional wrestling match. And of course, throughout, the lights kept going on and off, but whatever. In the end, though, Apollo just no-sold the German suplex from MVP. He hit him with that spin-out powerbomb thing, and he got the 1, 2, 3. So finally, we can say 100% officially, Apollo Crews is your US champion, and he took MVP's belt away from him, and he ran away from the rest of the Hurt Business, because it's his business, and he doesn't want to get hurt. Lashley did chase him for a little while, but then did that thing that all wrestlers do when you just stop, because the entranceway has some kind of magical force field around him, and this made him look even more dumb, because if he had followed through, Charlie Caruso was there with her microphone and she started to interview Apollo. Again, Bob, you could have wrecked him. That didn't happen though, and Crews very nicely said he's going to take the old United States title. That's going to go up in his kids' bedroom so they can be proud of their dad, but this new one looks pretty good on his shoulder. And he ain't lying. Back in the ring, MVP was losing his mind, saying he demands a rematch at SummerSlam. And of course, the lights kept going on and off as if there was some kind of rave. I mean, I tell you, subtlety is not WWE's strongest point. We then went from this craziness to brand new craziness because we went to some magic door in the Performance Center and there was a giant bodyguard stood outside of it. And as we were told by the announce team, oh, that's Shane McMahon's magic room, is Shane McMahon's special door. And later on, we're going to find out what's behind it. Also, forgive me, I said Shane McMahon. He hasn't been on television for a while. Obviously, WWE advertised that on social media beforehand. And if you're a long-term viewer, you understand. If not, well, you're just going to have to get used to it. When we say Shane McMahon, we go Shane McMahon. We just do. Also, at this point when I was watching, I just assumed that this magic room was going to tie into the light problem, and so I thought, okay, well maybe when we open the door, it's just going to be some asshole light guy flicking the switch. You're like, what are you doing, asshole light guy? The ALG. Sasha Banks and Bayley were then backstage gloating about how they have all the championship belts, and they even aired another video that they had prepared for themselves until this got interrupted by a Furious Asuka. And that's now her new form. She is Furious Asuka. Banks and Bayley were really pissed off about this too, as I suppose you would be if you were excited about seeing a little film that you'd created for yourself, when they got interrupted by none other than Shayna Baszler. Where's my hat again? Oh, Shayna Baszler, she can come in. But she doesn't like the fact that Sasha Banks won the Raw Women's title as she did, so she punched her in the face. Why not? It was Kevin Owens' time next, as he was going to be hosting an episode of the Kevin Owens Show, and he bumped into the Iconics on his way to the ring, and they said, "Hi Kevin, can we be on your show, mate?" And he turned and he said, no. And that's because his guest was going to be Ruby Riott instead. Now, thankfully, Owens did mention the fact that Shane McMahon is back, because he's the dude that made him leave WWE forever, but no one seems to be questioning why he's come back. I mean, why would they? Anyway, the whole point of this was to reunite Ruby with Liv Morgan. I know what you're thinking. I thought Ruby Riott was teaming up with Bianca Belair. Well, her name was barely mentioned here, so clearly this was the plan before the pandemic. That took some people out, but now we've got past it, so we're just going back to it, because who needs a story? For Pete's sake, down. Apparently the only reason Ruby Riott beat up Liv Morgan to begin with is that when she came back to Raw initially, she didn't recognize the place. I'm not making this up. These are the words that came out of their mouth, and so therefore, they should be a team again. They then made lots of Riott references, and every time I think I died inside because they were so cheesy. And of course, eventually the Iconics came out. They didn't like Kevin Owens, so they slapped Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens then said to the now new Riott Squad, "Hey, why don't you beat these two up?" And so they beat these two up. I mean, you could have just thrown a fish in the ring and said, "Oh, that's the fish that spit up Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan," and it would have made as much sense as any of this did. We were then going to get that match, but first we had to go back to Shane McMahon's special door, where some production guy was going to go in there, but the bodyguard was all like, no. So I guess you have to be somebody special to get in Shane McMahon's special magical door. As for this fight, well, it lasted about 7 seconds until Billie Kay got pinned with the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the surprise roller. Bring it down. It's number 58. 58. This was pointless. No offense to anyone involved. It wasn't their fault. They were just doing what they were told, but it was pointless. Down. The Iconics tried to attack them afterwards, but the now new Riott Squad were able to fight them off, just to let you know they're back on the same page, even though WWE fired the third member a few months ago. From nowhere, Charlie Caruso was then freaking out backstage because, I'm laughing, but this is actually what happened, because a box had been knocked over. That's right, this box was a very important box, and it had been knocked over, and Charlie Caruso theoried, oh, I know, it must have been this new faction that, again, WWE's had teased on social media before Raw began, and that probably explains our light problem too. Now, the whole point of all these articles that WWE did post was that a brand new faction was coming to Monday Night Raw, and they were going to cause chaos. But at this point, all they had done was knock over a box and muck around with the lighting. I mean, this could have been done by an escaped raccoon. Like, if I had been backstage in the Performance Center, I wouldn't go, oh no, it must be a new faction. I would have gone, all right, it's a raccoon. A raccoon got out of his cage and it's just running amok. And at this stage, we were none the wiser, so you could probably blame it on the raccoon. Even MVP agreed with me, because he then walked up to Charlie and he was like, really? You're reporting on boxes now? And I was like, yeah, you tell her, MVP, it's absolutely ridiculous. He then confirmed he will go after Apollo Crews at SummerSlam. That is fine. What was not fine is that Shelton Benjamin then joined MVP and was like, dude, bro, somebody has stolen my 24/7 championship. And they couldn't believe it. And they dropped a few lines that worked the Hurt Business into their quotes. And while it was a little bit cheesy, I loved it because I just believed every word that he said. Thankfully, our main event program for the WWE title is great. Give it up. Our champion Drew McIntyre was here, and boy howdy, he does not like Randy Orton, because he totally believes that Randy would have been fired years ago if it wasn't for the fact that he was a second-generation superstar. He's been handed everything, and you want to stay away from that a little bit because it's too much like the Edge storyline. You don't just want to repeat yourself, and that WWE has been literally cleaning up his crap for ages. And if you know, you know, and if you don't know, do not Google it, but this was not a case of the word literal being used wrongly, and Fortunately, there are tales out there. The Viper then arrived on the scene with Ric Flair, who is now back by his side. Who knows why he just skipped that 1 week? You don't need to know that information, just pretend it didn't exist. And he agreed with Drew. He was like, yeah, I should have been fired. Not once, not twice, not thrice, but a bajillion times. But you know why I was not? Because I'm too important to the company, McIntyre. As for you, they threw your ass on the street because nobody cares about your life. Not even your mum. He didn't say that, but it was implied. After telling Drew that he had heard all of this before too, he asked him to come up with an original thought. So McIntyre said, all right, you want me to shoot on you? I will shoot. And then he pulled the gun out and he fired a bullet at Randy Orton. That didn't happen. The only reason I bring that up is because if you were a brand new viewer, you'd be like, what the hell does shoot mean? But my word, did McIntyre go in hard here. Because he said, well, like everybody, I watched the Last Ride documentary, and on that show, The Undertaker talked about how he helped you and how he dragged you up so you could be on his level. And Orton, you've been doing this for 7,000 years, and who have you ever brought up? Absolutely nobody. You've never given anything back. Drew finished all this off by saying that Randy Orton was a selfish prick and that at SummerSlam, he will hand out a bunch of receipts from both current superstars and past superstars, all of which who would love the chance to punch Orton right in the face. This was honestly really good, and you could believe every single word they were saying. They were intense and they were mad, and I guarantee you that in 1 week time, Ric Flair is going to be punted right in the head, courtesy of the man who hears voices in his own brain. This seemingly all upset Kevin Owens too, because straight afterwards he bumped into the Nature Boy, and Ric Flair was like, what are you doing, Kevin Owens? That wasn't Ric Flair at all, but he's like, what are you doing? Stop trying to help each other out, start focusing on you, and then maybe you would be in the main event at SummerSlam. And KO didn't appreciate this at all. He goes, oh, you want to see my fight? You want to see what I can do? Well, next week on Raw, I challenge Randy Orton. You go and tell your boy. That's a little bit random, but that's a match that I want to see, so it's okay. Pat Buck was then in the ring with Nia Jax. And this was all because last week, when Nia was just throwing a tantrum and attacking officials, she had also beaten up Pat Buck. So now apparently Nia Jax and Pat Buck had to have a conversation. Who on earth is Pat Buck? Down. He was only out here because he'd been told that Jax was going to apologize to him, but of course she didn't, and instead Nia said to this man, well, why don't we just have a match instead, and then we can put all of this behind us. Instead, Pat Buck told her, well, actually, you've just got suspended indefinitely. Doesn't Nia Jax literally get suspended every single week? And how does that make any sense? That's a contradiction in terms. She then just beat him up, and I have no idea where this is going, but I bet my ass it's gonna end in some kind of intergender match, because again, WWE just throwing everything at the wall, and I suppose that one stuck. So we could have Nia Jax beat up Pat Buck. R-Truth then rang to the ring with the 24/7 title, and he was soon accompanied by Tozawa and the Ninjas, as many new fans watched going, why is there a bunch of ninjas running around, and why is no one explaining this to me? Shelton Benjamin was also on the scene, because we were just gonna have a triple threat match. Down. And Tozawa won the belt after he hit a senton on Truth, and this was honestly nothing. It was paper thin, you could have stuck your head through it and it would just smash. It was kind of cool because at one point MVP and Bobby Lashley ran out there and they started kicking people's ass, and I just love this group. I think they're amazing. And then here we were, after hours of teasing Shane McMahon was back on our screens, and he has somehow been able, within 1 week, because no one mentioned this 7 days ago, so within 1 week, he has been able to have the project of Raw Underground greenlit, which will officially go live at 10 p.m. And a couple of dudes were fighting behind him in a ring with no ropes. It was so gritty and seedy and meant to look like it was real that, of course, the first thing you thought was, oh my gosh, it's Brawl for All. However, it's not the Brawl for All, so I can only figure that somebody backstage, when they were coming up with ideas, went, oh, we should do the Brawl for All again. But then they were told, no, the Brawl for All sucked, we can't do that. So they went, well, we could work the fights. And then this guy got looked at like, that's wrestling, you moron. That's what we're doing every week. And then he went, I've got it. We'll just get rid of the ropes. And they all stood up and went, whoa! And that's all this is. And we'll get there. There's loads of segments with this, so I'll address it at the end. Dominic Mysterio then challenged Seth Rollins to a match at SummerSlam. This kind of got me excited. Sarah Schreiber was like, look, why do you even keep coming to Raw? It's so dangerous to begin with. And we all know why. It's because Rey Mysterio is a terrible father. It's here when he said that he did want Seth at the pay-per-view, and I'm really intrigued about this. I'm fascinated to see what WWE is going to do. It's one of the things that actually does make sense. And it's been a while too, but here we are, because it was then time for Shayna Baszler versus Sasha Banks, and this was actually one of those random matches which you could make heads or tails of, because I can completely believe if somebody had punched you backstage an hour or so ago, you would go up to someone and go, look, can I have a match against this person? And they would go, yes. What I can't handle anymore are these nonsensical, stupid finishes. So, yes, not just a down, a brow down. Why? Because I don't even understand what happened. Forget about the match, good, bad, indifferent, it's utterly irrelevant. Because halfway through, Bayley, who was on the outside, got attacked by Furious Oscar, and because of that, the referee rang the bell and said the match had to be cancelled. That is like Keith from marketing getting fired from work because Steve in accounts stole $1 million. What did Keith do? So we can't have random people fighting on the outside anymore, even though for like 47 decades in WWE, we've seen that over and over again. I mean, sometimes the person in the match will attack dudes that run in from the outside, and that's still not a DQ or a non-finish, but here, let's change the rules. Now, thankfully, the fallout was a lot better, because Basler said to Oscar, look, I'm only going to kick your ass when you're the Raw Women's Champion, so you go to SummerSlam and you win that belt back. And then Sasha Banks and Bayley came out and said, oh, fine, you want a match against me? Well, you can, but only Furious Oscar if you're able to beat Bayley next week. And that made sense too, because Bayley was all like, what? I didn't agree to that. But given that it's usually Bayley screwing Sasha Banks over like this, it only works if she does it right back, because we have to break these two up eventually. What was absolutely baffling is that even though all these four people were out in the ring having their match, when we did this, Bayley and Sasha Banks were then back in the back and they had their entrance again. However, it was a decent ending to an absolutely confoodling segment. Angel Garza then got somebody from The Bachelor, the TV show's number. I don't know, you tell me. And Zelina Vega was really mad about it. You know what? That's right. I hit my elevator button. I'm going down. I'm going down because the next segment is Raw Underground anyway, so that's where I need to be, and I can't handle this stuff anymore, so Raw Underground it is. And here we are, all underground and shib, and yeah, that's what this was. Shane was here and he had a bunch of dancers in the background and he was in this really dark, gritty, underground lair. I guess like somewhere where Mum-Ra from the Thundercats would live if he was present in 2020. And if you just want this broken down, it's Fight Club. Movie that was released around 25 years ago. McMahon then introduced Dabba Kato, who I think used to be Bubba Tunde, and he just started to wreck all these fools with Shane McMahon jumping in every few seconds, trying to calm him down. And I'll tell you this, in terms of atmosphere, it did work. There was a bunch of people outside making a load of noise and shouting and just going, oh, get him, get him. And if you wanted to believe this was some kind of underground fight club, I suppose you could. The thing is, I don't understand what the point is. Again, there's more coming, so all up and downs in a little bit, but it's just so strange. It was like if the video game Def Jam Vendetta came to life. I really like Def Jam Vendetta, but again, I think that came out in like when the dinosaurs were wandering around. But yes, give it a few minutes and we'll talk. It was then back to normality, thank goodness, because we were going to get the Street Profits versus Andrade and Angel Garza in singles matches as we build to their tag team title bout at SummerSlam. Of course this wasn't normal. Why did you buy into that, you stupid fool? Don't listen to the bald asshole, it's getting it down. And I would have been happy for just one team to have won one of them and the other team to have won the other one to make you go, well, I wonder who's gonna win in a few weeks. And I know that's boring and obvious, but sometimes boring and obvious works. But instead, when Dawkins and Ford were cutting a promo beforehand saying how great they were, Montez drank from his red cup and then looked at the camera like, there was something wrong with this, I wonder what it could be. So when Dawkins was taken on Angel Garza and Montez Ford did indeed collapse on the outside, Dawkins was distracting, WWE finished number 2, he got smashed in the face and he lost. But then the whole focus was on Ford, who was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Montez then tried to have his match, but a few minutes in, he went to shake the ropes and he collapsed again, and the whole thing was thrown out and you were left wondering, oh my gosh, maybe the man is going to die. And I get that it's to make you tune in next week, or at least stay tuned into this show, but you're about to learn the revelation of this, and well, once again, it's stupid. Before that though, Murphy was watching himself beat up Aleister Black last week and maybe second guessing himself when Seth Rollins arrived and went, Murphy, it's all right, you did the right thing, I'm here for you, let's hug forever. He also wanted to know if Seth was actually going to take this seriously, the challenge from Dominic, and Rollins just kind of looked at him and went, and he walked off. Now I'm gonna have to speed up because this episode of Raw had so many flipping segments, I don't know how I'm gonna get through them all, including this one. because we were in the back still at the trainer's room, and as we learned, Montez Ford had had all these problems because somebody, wait for it, had poisoned him. They had poisoned his drink. Now, there's a couple of things here. One, I'm 99% sure if you get poisoned, you don't collapse once, get back to your feet and then collapse again. You're pretty much dying straight away. And two, if somebody poisoned Montez Ford, then the police need to be involved and they need to go to jail. Anyway, Bianca Belair is now back with the Street Profits. I'm not even going to bother because you tell me. And she fell out with Zelina Vega going, oh, you poisoned my man. And Zelina Vega was like, I didn't poison anybody's man. And that's now what we have to figure out. Who poisoned Montez Ford? I mean, why don't we get the Hardy Boys involved? I mean, Jeff and Matt, I mean, that book that was written, that's what they used to do. Oh, we got to run around and find out what happened to this thing. Get them involved. This honestly was like having adrenaline injected into your face because there was just so much happening, including now Angel Garza hitting on Charlie Caruso, even though earlier he was hitting on that Basler girl. We then had some CCTV footage of a hut being burned down. As it turned out, it wasn't a hut. It was meant to be the electrical generator, and this was all caused by this mysterious group that had been talked about the entire night. What a crappy group. They just mucked around with lights and they burned the generator down, which they didn't because I'm 99% sure if you did burn a generator down, it would explode and kill everybody that was on the show. That will happen next week, because again, just throw things. In between all that, my word, I'm exhausted. We also had Eric from the Viking Raiders join Raw Underground, or however we're going to phrase it, and he too beat up some fool. We do have one more fight, and that's when we'll get into it, but look, this was actually the coolest the Viking Raider has looked like weeks, so maybe there is just the slightest upside. Raw then got good. Oh, finally. Up. There was everything between Seth Rollins and Dominic, and who knew that would steal the show? I mean, a huge reason for that is that it involved Samoa Joe, and if Samoa Joe is a lot like nachos, you always want it. The twist in the tale is that when Rollins was first out there, he was like, right, before I talk to the Mysterio family, Tom Phillips, I need to have a word with you because I heard everything that you were saying last week and you were cheering on Dominic. You wanted him to cause all this destruction, and as the lead commentator, you are meant to be impartial, you are meant to call it down the middle, and you didn't. Seth was right. To fix this, he and Murphy are going to take Tom off of commentary permanently until Samoa Joe got off of his chair, unbuttoned his cuffs, which is like the standard thing you do when you say you're going to fight, and went, well, if you want to get him, you're going to have to go through me. And Samoa Joe is so intense and so believable, I don't actually think he realizes that wrestling isn't real. If he somehow gets involved in all of this, I will be so happy because I think I'm in love with the man. And it was at this point that Dominic Mysterio did make his way to the ring too. He started to beat up Seth Rollins with a kendo stick. He also hit with a 619. He then jumped at Murphy off the post and gave him like a crossbody. He once again looked great. And the whole thing ended with me going, oh my gosh, I want to see Seth Rollins versus Dominic more than anything in the world. The bad guys had to run away as Seth went, right, fine, that's it, I'm done with you, you stupid child. I will fight you at SummerSlam. And I can't wait. And wouldn't you know it, the thing that is long-term storytelling is also the best thing on Raw. Right, our final segment, and now we can dive into Raw Underground properly, especially because here, when we did go back to Shane's special magical room door thingy, Dolph Ziggler was also beating up some numpty. So again, that's the Viking Raiders who got a win on TV, and Dolphy Boy Ziggler, he never wins, but on Raw Underground, it's like a career renewed. Where the narrative aspects come into play, though, is that the Hurt Business, who earlier on felt like it was Raw Underground that had screwed them over this evening, because of course both Shelton and MVP lost, decided that they were not only going to go check this out, but also they were going to take over the place. So they did. Now that is good because I really like this group, and if you can make this tie in and actually work and make it TV I want to watch, then hey, I will buy all in. However, my worry is that WWE is just going to drop this in a few weeks like they always do and then go, shh, don't tell anyone. It didn't do 10 million viewers the first time we did it, so now we're just dropping it like a dead body in the ocean. And don't pretend they haven't done that before. Do you remember in the third hour of Raw when Mick Foley was like, oh, now it's going to be the gritty 60 minutes. And then 2 weeks later, there was no gritty third hour of Raw. I also do think that the addition of like crappy soft porn music and dancers is not needed, and neither was Shane McMahon. He doesn't need to be affiliated with this whatsoever. So all of that, when you take it and put it in a bubble, it's a down. However, did I hate this? And the answer, to be truthful with you, is no, I did not. It does look different, and I've been begging WWE to do something different for around about 102 years. And again, if we can tie this into the Hurt Business and make them a really, really good faction, that they do crazy shoot fights, I don't think it's all that bad. Now, it might fail, but at least give it time to fail, and once more, it did benefit Dolph Ziggler, it did benefit Eric from the Viking Raiders, and it made Shelton Benjamin look more badass than he has done in ages, because here, Bobby Lashley, MVP, and him were just like, hitting whoever the hell they wanted, and because Benjamin has that proper wrestling amateur background, he looked great. So there is an upside, and when you have an upside, you have to give it an up. I'm not gonna stand here and go, do something different, do something different. They do something different, I go, I didn't want that. I am going to let it play out. So yes, it's an up, and I'm sure I'll live to regret it. But honestly, and breaking the fourth wall for a second, not only is this the longest Raw ups and downs I've ever recorded in my life, I think we're up to 40 minutes, obviously it'd be cut down for the thing, but there's just so much to talk about. There's one last big reveal that nobody has talked about. I went out there and I 100% know where all these stories ideas came from and why this happened and why it felt as nuts as it did. And I'm going to reveal that to you right now. It was me, I did it. I read all your tweets and all your messages and you didn't like the direction Raw was going in, so I took my hands and I went lullaby and I just changed everything. I also got wasted beforehand. I had drunk so much whiskey. So it was like, oh, Raw Underground, oh, Shane McMahon, oh, finish even though there wasn't a finish. So don't blame anyone else. Just thank me, the wizard in the sky, for always giving you what you want and having my finger on the pulse of entertainment in 2020. I mean, I'm not wrong, am I? I never say that. I'm not wrong. I can't give this an up or a down. I'm just gonna give this what the hell. That's what it gets this week. Raw this week gets what the hell. I need to go lay down. I have no idea what's gonna happen next week, and I'm absolutely terrified. If this rating is bad, aliens will show up. There'll just be some aliens. Now, don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about last night's episode of Raw. Like the video, share the video, subscribe. Shout out to the guy that tweeted me the other day going, stop doing the bit at the end. It's called engagement, you moron. Then head over to WhatCulture.com and read yourself some articles. Follow WhatCulture on Twitter, WhatCulture WWE, and watch more videos here on WhatCulture Wrestling. Never sing. My name is Simon from WhatCulture. End the video.